Hi, everyone, and welcome. My name is Sue, and I am an alcoholic. My sobriety date is April 28, 2009. Welcome, everyone, to today's Threads of Recovery workshop. I have stated I am an alcoholic. Do we have any other alcoholics in the meeting? Hello, and welcome, everyone. Acknowledging God's presence with a moment of silence. We'll follow that with a set-aside prayer. The set-aside prayer. Lord, help me set aside everything I think I know about you, everything that I think I know about myself, everything that I know about my fellows, everything I think I know about my own recovery, for a much-needed new experience in you, myself, and my fellows, and a new experience in my own recovery. Help me see the truth. Amen. 1058 Threads of Recovery continues to offer virtual workshops 5 days a week. To be included in our weekly email, send your request to threads1058@gmail.com. This will keep you up to date on our workshops. Our group follows the 12 traditions. We stick to our singleness of purpose. We ask that everyone act as if they are sitting in a live meeting. Please turn your camera on if possible. We would love to see your smiling faces. The 7th tradition states every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. The contributions help to cover the group's expenses. But the 7th tradition is more than simply paying for rent and other groups' expenses. It is both a privilege and a responsibility of individual groups and members to ensure that our organization at every level remains forever self-supporting and free of outside influences that might divert us from our primary purpose. The monetary amount of each contribution is secondary to the spiritual connection that joins us in unity with AA groups around the world. 7th tradition contributions can be made using Venmo to @Threads of Recovery -1058. Details are in the chat. This is an open meeting. Open meetings are available to anyone interested in Alcoholics Anonymous program or recovery from alcoholism. Non-alcoholics are welcome to attend open meetings as observers. And now, it is my great pleasure to introduce today's speaker. Please help me welcome our friend, John C. on emotional sobriety. Welcome, John.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome to our last session on emotional sobriety. This is number 7. And I hope that you got something out of this workshop. And I spent a lot of time and effort organizing my thoughts and experiences, my resources, that really do investigate this topic. Now, I want you to get something off the top. In Bill Wilson's letter, The Grapevine, after 18 years of sobriety, called the emotional sobriety as the next frontier. And so there was very little said about, from our co-founder, about really what emotional sobriety really represents. And it's like him passing the baton to each of us to really investigate what that actually means to us. Now, we would have different definitions of emotional sobriety if we went around the room and asked, and it would range from, just something from controlling emotions to a broader and more holistic approach to emotional sobriety. But Wilson, he talked about which had me concerned about the work I was doing. He was talking about, it's a natural fallout of the service work we do in the love of God that's going to give us the emotional sobriety. Now, what I've found is that because we work an individual program with individual sponsors who represent different ideas within the program, we all agree about the overarching how to agree or how to work the steps. But inside of that, each of us have different views of things. Like, for instance, our views of God, our views of how to go about the fourth step, our views about working with others. We have different dynamics. And therefore, I've concluded that there is no predictable outcome as a result of doing the work of the 12 steps. Some of us get it. Some of us stumble upon it. And many people that I talk to somehow has missed it. Now, it doesn't mean that they're bad or they're weak or anything else. Don't make it mean anything. If you're one of those persons that figure, there's something missing in my life, what I want you to really get is to honor your experience. This is what's important. Don't make it mean something diminishing about you. I would prefer that you would think about to honor the experience and maybe what's required as additional resources. So please don't make it sound like you're bad or something like that. Also, I want you to consider that, get away from the wishing of it. In other words, one day, someday, this is all going to turn around, and that I'm going to find emotional sobriety in my lap. Don't know how it got there, but there it is. That may happen, by the way. I mean, I can't predict whether that'll happen or not. But what I'm saying to you is that I want you to investigate, and what we've been talking about the last 7 weeks is really some tried and true methods that actually have us approaching emotional sobriety in different ways in which we live our life. So in case you don't know who I am, I'm John. I'm an alcoholic. I've been sober for 50 years in AA. And what you're hearing is the bulk of my experience and learning around my emotions. And that there's a period of time in sobriety or recovery that all I paid attention to is the physical release of the addiction. In other words, I put the alcohol down and all my attention was placed there until one day, when I would have maybe what some people would consider mature sobriety, realize that there's more to do mentally and emotionally on how to deal with life on life's terms. Now, we pick up a lot of information around meetings, other people's experiences, and maybe some of you right now are writing notes because you just got to write everything down to remember. I'm going to ask you to don't do that. I'm going to ask you, if you're going to write anything down, write an action down that you're prepared to take in the next 24 hours. So what happens with note-taking, by the way, with the good intentions of reviewing it, for most of the time we don't go back at it. It kind of gets pushed aside. Life gets in the way. And all that good note-taking that we'd actually prevented us from being in action. So you're not going to get, we covered a lot of information here, by the way, a lot of information. And someone was saying they're early in sobriety and it's almost like drinking from a fire hose. You're not going to get it all. But what you can get is one action as a result of coming out of this meeting. And this is what I want you to focus on. What is it I'm going to do differently today as a result of this meeting, a result of the sharing of the people who are participating, that's going to make a difference in my life? It's all about action. So we have an intention and action gap. And we think by learning more and remembering more, we're going to get into action. And it's a falsehood. It's a misconception. It's a myth. Oftentimes, the need to know prevents us from being in action. So I really want to run up the caution flag here. And if you take away anything from this 7-week series, you take away, I am going to do an action as a result of a conversation, a result of meeting with my sponsor, a result of going to a meeting. I'm going to take away one action and I'm going to practice it. I'm going to practice it so it makes a difference in my life. So that idea doesn't belong to somebody else anymore. It belongs to me. Now, one of my brand promises is that you can have emotional sobriety within 3 minutes a day. So I'm not talking about huge amount of work where it has to have a lot of space. You see, when we group and take notes on 7 weeks of information, there's going to be a lot of work, and you're going to look at that as if it was a mountain too high to climb. See, we're getting this counterintuitive thing that's happening that we think we need to know more. We need to know more. We need to know more. And what I want to be very clear about is that the action of these items is what's vitally important. So listen to get something into action. Don't write and say, I'm going to remember this, want to remember that, remember that. So as I say, I've been doing this work for 50 years, and there's a period in my sobriety where I realized that my emotions were out of whack. And I was making emotional decisions and emotional behaviors that drove me in certain places. And I can tell you without a doubt that this caused me all kinds of grief. This up and down roller coaster, the limited vocabulary I had around emotions. I couldn't feel the emotions, but because I cut my feelings off. Because you know what? I'm an addict. I'm an alcoholic. And I'll do anything but feel pain. So the way for me to do that, one way to do that was, of course, to drink the alcohol. But after I stopped drinking, another way of doing it is to cut off my emotions so I didn't have to feel what life was handing me. So what the result of that was this idea that life is so difficult, it's hard, and that my emotions were gripping me in such a way that had me think that I was stuck. And we're going to do a little exercise around some words that we use later on in the meeting. So what am I saying to you? That's a long introduction. Think about what action you're going to put in place today as a result of hearing something that's moving you. Now, let me just talk for a moment about that. What we want to do is listen to our heart space, and therefore we have to be connected to our bodies. The head lies. I'm sorry to tell you, it lies. It has the capacity to delete, has the capacity to exaggerate and minimize. It has the capacity to defend and justify. All of those things the brain actually does. You can't prevent it from happening. That's what the organ does. So it has a tendency to lie. So I had to get used to the idea that my thoughts were at least suspicious, that they weren't saying the truth, that they were the information or the thinking I was doing had to be put to a test. Whereas the body never lies. The body doesn't have the capacity to lie. It has no ability to think. The emotions that are coming out from me and from you are a natural response to the stimulus both internally and externally. So we prime the emotions by how life is occurring to us. And if life is occurring hard or difficult or impossible, stressful or an overwhelm, that's going to give rise to certain emotions. So I want you to get this thing we've been working on, which I think is so important, to begin to appreciate how complex what we're talking about actually is. And I'm just going to show you. And if you've seen it, you probably remember it, but this is triangle. If you take in CBT, you'll understand and appreciate what this is saying. We have emotions, we have thoughts, we have behaviors, and those are represented by the 3 blue dots. And you see a 2-way arrow. In other words, what it means is that each of these things are bidirectional. So your thoughts change your emotions or brings about certain emotions. Your emotions bring about certain thoughts. And also the interplay of the bidirectional is the behaviors. Behaviors bring about certain thoughts, and behaviors do bring about certain emotions. And it's a simple triangle, but it really represents the complexity of what we're doing. Now, some definitions of emotional sobriety, they pull out or they try to pull out just the emotions. And the challenge with that is this, that it can't be pulled out on its own, in my view, in the research that I've done. It has to be grouped together because each of these independent things actually are connected like a string of pearls, one affecting the other. So this is important to be able to appreciate how this complexity of being human actually works. And let's just go back and we talked about emotional sobriety by having some spokes in a wheel here, that mindfulness contributes to emotional sobriety. Maximizing our strengths contributes to emotional sobriety. Positive relationships contributes to emotional sobriety. And as you continue to develop this wheel, this idea that these different ideas that help us calm the emotions, we're less likely to be in what we'd call emotional dysregulation. So let me just give you an example of that, and you can identify with it, I'm sure. If you're caught in a poor relationship or a poor friendship, and that person gives you cause to be angry or upset or feel betrayed even, the result of that is emotional dysregulation. You can't help it. You may say to yourself, oh, I'll just accept them for who they are. But if that's what that relationship gives you, you're not going to be in emotional regulation or emotional sobriety. Conversely, if you're working on your relationships with people and you're developing connection with them and going deeper into them, that's going to bring you closer to emotional sobriety. So this wheel really represents the different things that contribute to emotional sobriety. And what we've been talking about for the last 7 weeks is these things that contribute to emotional sobriety. We haven't been talking about emotions. And today's the day we're going to be talking about emotions. So let's review very quickly. The metaphor of a sailboat going through a journey. The journey destination is emotional sobriety. Each sailboat has a captain, so you're the captain of your own sailboat. And what we're saying about the captain is that, number one, we want to place our attention. Where are we going to place our attention? So we want to be very open to the place where we're focusing in on something. Now, other people would say, I'm going to focus on the solution, not the problem. This is what I'm talking about. It's about attention placement. We want to be able to always look over the ocean that we're riding on, and we're paying attention to their strengths. We're paying attention to our emotions. We're paying attention to these things. The next thing the captain has to do is really think about the thoughts and beliefs and the interpretations of those things. So you're getting into some complexity here. I know we want to keep it simple, but this is not a simple subject. Each of us have thoughts. We're not our thoughts. We have thoughts. And our thoughts are generated from beliefs. And also we have to be suspicious because we interpret those things. They're not reality. They're not truths. That is how life occurs to us. So we got to get out of certainty of the way we're thinking that it's reality. We need to be suspicious. We need to understand life is occurring to us and we're making it mean something. I had a conversation with a young lady yesterday who was in a vicious cycle of overwhelm, and it was painful to listen or experience. And she was stuck. She was emotionally upset, stuck, and all she could focus on is the emotional pain in which she was experiencing, which included worry, frustration, fear, and she had boxed herself in. How many times have I had that happen to me? And perhaps you've had it happen as well. Within 20 minutes of some conversation, I asked her then if the overwhelm was at 10 when we started this conversation, where is it now? She said 5. And I said, okay, let's continue the conversation. So another few minutes, I asked her again, where is the overwhelm? She says, well, it's down to 3. I said, okay, you've been sitting in your car. You haven't done anything. The circumstances are the same as what they were. But all of a sudden now you've taken a 10 overwhelm and brought it down to 3. Why is that? Because overwhelm isn't real. You feel it. I'm not suggesting you don't feel it, but it isn't real. It's like you can poke a hole in the balloon to let the air out at any time you're willing to create an action plan to deal with the things that you need to deal with. And this is so important to realize. Within 40 minutes, this young lady had an action plan and 3 different things in her life, and she felt emotionally better. She hadn't done anything. But she saw a way out. This is where we want to get to in emotional sobriety. We want to be able to create an action plan no matter what storms we face. And us being a captain have to be so used to these tools that that's what we're going to go rather than being stuck. Part of the captain's responsibility is the motivation and the action in which we take in our lives. So if you ever thought about this, if you ever had an emotion like fear, like worry, upset, or any other emotion, anger, resentment even, and started ruminating on that, you're engaged in it. It grows by the minute. We've forgotten the reason or the fact of what had happened. We've been building on it. So let's say it's resentment, for instance. The resentment becomes worry and frustration. You may have a sense of loss. Maybe we want to create some isolation. And what we're doing is compounding a problem. You see, this is what happens in a mind that's not trained. We go to our default ways of learning what we've done as far back as children, how we dealt with reality and the grown-up people, and we're trying to survive and try to make an understanding of the world, only to find that it's difficult and even impossible. We get into thinking habits that are not helpful or healthy or productive. The work in which we're doing here is creating a new reality, a new occurring. So it doesn't matter what life throws at us. We're able to deal with it through the practice of those spokes. Now, there's 8 stages to this. Life domains, roles that you play in life. What we're going to talk about today is the compass, the emotions. Each sailboat has a steering wheel. That means the captain can choose, the power of choice. I can't tell you how important that is. We're not victims. We're not conquered by emotions or thoughts. We're not victims of that. We're not enslaved by them unless we choose to be. And if we play that card so often, there's no choice in the matter. We automatically default there. So what we want to do is to say, okay, wait a minute here. I am not my emotions. I have emotions. I am not my behaviors. I do my behaviors. I am not my thoughts, although I do have thoughts. So I'm separating myself from those 3 elements. And I become an observer. I begin to witness what's occurring rather than be in the middle of a storm. So each of us have leaks in the boat. There are weaknesses, and we don't. I think you've heard me if you're here before. We have an AA over-invested in our weaknesses. The conversations got to such a point where we keep examining what's wrong with us. we never examine or hardly ever examine what's right with us. And all of a sudden, you're getting a very poor or limited view of who you are. And by continuing to ruminate that what's wrong with me, what's wrong with me, what's wrong with me, we're making ourselves smaller and weaker than who we truly are. What we have to be is responsible for those weaknesses. And we also want to learn what strengths we can put in place to overcome those weaknesses and move forward through some coping or resiliency skill sets or tools. Each of us have strengths, friend. All of us do it. We're talented. We have purpose. We have meaning. We have values. We have principles. And that's the wind in our sails. That's what keeps the boat moving. And for us not to look at that and do some strength spotting, strength development, and strength expression, what we're doing is slowing our boats down. What we want to do is break out of those old habits and start a new way of thinking to remind ourselves, what strengths do I have? How can I use the strengths of which I identified? And are they being underutilized? Or in fact, are they being overutilized? Next thing is that each of us, we have a weather condition, we have storms in our life. How are we going to manage those storms? Who are we going to be and how are we going to relate to those storms? Is it going to be relating to fear and we get shut down because we have a storm in our life? Or we're going to look with an open mind, with growth mindset, and say, okay, here's the storm. I'm ready to deal with it. I'm ready to approach the storm rather than avoid it. I'm going to approach it to see what I can do about it, using the strength in which I've learned about myself. And then the other boats, we are a tribe. We are social beings, whether we want to admit to it or not, we are a tribe. And how we're going to get along with each other. Who am I in a relationship? What am I going to look like, sound like, and be like in a relationship? Whether it's a friendship, a good neighbor, a good AA member, or in fact, an intimate relationship. And what's our destination? And our destination today is emotional sobriety. To be at our best. What I want you to do right now is just think about this. I want you to absorb this, that you at your best. Is this possible right now, today, in this moment? And the answer is absolutely yes. What may be preventing you is what you're paying attention to. Because the reality of this situation, friends, is this. You are always, and I am always going to have defects of character. I've worked hard at this game, friends. I can tell you, and I assert that I have not gotten rid of my defects of character. I know I'm unusual and probably a slow learner, but that is a fact of life. Life is more than identifying and being with the weaknesses of character. It is part of their nature. And isn't it interesting? And I find this absolutely amazing when I do my work with other people. We all know that we can't be perfect. We even say it. I'm a human being. I can't be perfect. And yet, when we're in the experience, we measure ourselves against perfection. Fascinating, isn't it? How we know something, and yet how we feel something might be very, very different. Okay. So, we're weakness-focused. And we feel progress, and rightfully so. This is a truth, by the way. When we take on our defects of character, the duration may lessen, and the intensity may get smaller. And we can say with some pride that, I've made progress with that. And that's true. But when you're looking at this continuum, what we're doing here, if this is the defect of character fully blown, we're somewhere in here. And there's a whole other side to being a human being. And that is the side of being flourishing, is to be strength-focused. To realize your potential and your purpose and your values and your strengths that were God given to you, and each day act that out. This is where I think I certainly want to be, and hopefully that you may want to be. So what does this all mean? Well, I got a little cartoon here. What we're going to be doing is training our brains. We're training our brains. On page 23 of the big book, it says the main problem with an alcoholic is centers in his mind. So wouldn't it stand to reason that we need to train our brain so that it responds as a good organ should? And that's what we're doing here. We're training our minds. We're retraining it. We're unlearning some ideas. We're looking at different ways to reframe certain things. And I hope that review was helpful. Did anybody hear anything new about that? A couple minutes to share.
What I heard, something that is really good that I can use, is that what is good about me, instead of, how we say, what is my fault? And so I can look at something positive first. What is good about me? That's like huge for me right now, what I heard, instead of what is always just what's wrong with me right now. What's wrong with me? Why did I do this again? So that would help me totally emotionally with this, instead of just thinking that it's like a deeper meaning for me right now. Yeah. That's what I. Thank you.
Yeah. So just expand on this idea a little bit. When we ask what's wrong with us, we get very internal and stop moving because we got to figure it out. So we get stuck. And if you start asking your brain certain questions, it's going to give you an answer. And it's only going to make you feel worse and worse. And you're taking the energy out of your spirit. Versus what's good about me, you start looking at a motivating question to keep us moving in the right direction. Like so many of us are beautiful souls we have who are persistent in recovery. And what a beautiful strength that is of persistence. Many of us have adopted the idea of our code, love and tolerance, to be able to intentionally act that out with everybody all the time. What a wonderful quality that is. So each of us have that, right? We've proven it. And I'll tell you something else. The power of storytelling is this. Write a story about yourself. Keep it to yourself. This is a suggestion, by the way. A period in your life. It could be AA. It could be something else. It could be going back to school. It could be any number of things, a marriage, a new relationship, or whatever. And just follow the pattern of what AA suggests, what we were like, what happened, and what we were like today. So there's 3 parts to the story. So what we were like, what happened, what we were like today. And then write your story. Be a storyteller. And then after you read your story, after you write your story, read it. Read it and look to identify some strengths that you never noticed before. This practice will help you. You have to introduce yourself again because you won't know who you're talking to anymore. You're reinventing yourself by aligning your strengths with your ability to have self-imaging. You're going to reorder that. Try it. It's powerful. Go ahead.
Thank you. Holly M., you have your hand up. Hi.
Hi, I'm Holly. I'm an alcoholic. Thank you, John, so much for everything, this series. I just had a mini paradigm shift in thinking that I can be my best at any given time on any given day. This is remarkable to me. I have been too focused on the weaknesses in all my AA decades instead of thinking about things a different way. Thank you so much. This is going to help, because some days when it feels like everything's just, I have a book I'm writing called Everything's Falling Down and There's Water Everywhere. And, there are days when I feel like that, but I can still be my best given those circumstances. I can still give it my best and be my best self. So I'm going to work on that. I appreciate it so much.
Oh, you're welcome, Holly. If you want, you at your best today There's nothing more to learn. Nothing. There's nothing more to get. There's nothing more to have. You at your best can be experienced now through a good intention and an action plan to get you there. Just think about that. You don't have to wait 50 years to come to this realization, whether you're sober a day or many years. Be your best at what you have, and you'll see a remarkable shift. And it's interesting because we're going to talk a little bit about metaphors in this talk too. So that's so good. So we'll just, okay, let's two quickly if we could.
Alyssa H. Hello.
Yeah, I was just gonna comment on how, that's very inspiring at the end of the day when we retire, to put some action into that by starting with the positive, and instead of dulling my spirits at first by, was I selfish, dishonest? I like those ideas too, because I think it's kind of in the back of my mind as I go about my day. And so, yeah, just the power of the material is coming alive, I think, slowly.
So good.
Thank you, Alyssa.
Yeah.
Hi, Ann. I'm sorry, John, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say, most people have not been taught this in step 10. They go through it, the four things that make up most people's step 10 of it. Am I dishonest? Am I selfish? Am I resentful? Or am I afraid? And if you want to take something, a bonus that you want to take away with, don't say I am. Because, friends, listen, our lives didn't start from our addiction. We tend to think I am in terms of our defects of character. But our lives began earlier than that. And they began with this idea that God had something to do, or your whoever you believe in, has something to do with your birth that gave you a sacred identity. When you say I am selfish over and over and over again every night, what we're doing is invading the sacred identity and staining it. So I never say that anymore. What I said, I had been selfish today, or I had an incidence of being selfish. I'm not selfish because I was giving a sacred identity. So now I'm removing the problem external and making it weaker by explaining to myself that I am and I have a sacred identity, and I am not those defects of character. I have them, and I need to be responsible for them, and I need to make amends because of them, but I am not that. Anyway, okay. I don't want to get off topic too far.
Okay, and we have one last hand, Ann. Hi, Ann.
Hi. Yes, thanks, John. It's the weaknesses and the strengths. I've always found it extremely difficult to find strength. But you just said one word there, the persistence. And I've persisted, by the grace of God, with the help of God, to stay sober for the past 35 years. And yet I'm still looking at defects and emotional sobriety, and which I need, but you've given me a tool to get it. So thanks, John.
You're welcome. And I also want you to know it's not your fault. If you had gone to any religious school or they talk about original sin, they don't talk about the original blessing. So we've been conditioned to think in a certain way. And also the drama is like a magnet. That's why we rubberneck an accident on a highway. There's something about drama, something disastrous that really catches our attention. So be kind to yourself and recognizing that. So all we need to do is to practice looking at our strengths, looking for them. is something called strength spotting, to be able to put words on your strengths. Just as a test, go out this week and ask an AA member or 12-step fellowship where you belong, and ask the person, would you mind telling me what's wrong with you? And you're going to hear exactly what the person believes is wrong with them. They can articulate it. They can identify it. They can communicate it. They can tell you every way and Sunday in which they've done something. Then ask them what's good about themselves. Tell me what's good about you. Then you watch. Some are able to struggle to answer it one or two ways, but most of the time what people are doing is they're searching. They have what they call fish eyes. Not because they don't have the strengths, it's because they haven't been practicing the strengths. And this is so important, friends. It's a shift, I know. And it's a shift from what's familiar. And but believe me, that shift is worth taking. That's placing our attention in a more positive place. Okay, so thank you for your share. So today we're going to be talking about living life of emotional sobriety is generally liberating. It's real freedom. Working with your emotions. I want you to hear what I'm saying here. Working with your emotions, not trying to control them, not trying to dismiss them, not trying to suppress them. I'm talking about working with them. Can be challenging because of our earlier patterns. But you can do it with dedication and a mindful practice. Now, this isn't easy. This is not easy. It takes deliberateness. It takes intention. It takes conversation. It takes, you see, one of the things I've learned very clearly is that information isn't enough. You may know this stuff, but it isn't enough. I don't mind giving you this information for free because it isn't enough. What's enough? Well, you need a group of people that are in the same direction, on your same destination on your sailboat as you are. And globally, we're all in sobriety. We have that in common. But when you get down to the smaller micro things that are important in recovery, like emotional sobriety, you need the same kind of people that are searching for the same things that you were searching for. And if you don't have it, you're going to try to do it on your own. And guess what happens? It won't work, because what you're doing is trying to motivate yourself on your own. And believe me when I say this, motivation is like a muscle. It gets tired, and life caves in on us, and we're off in another direction. We need people in a small group or whatever it is to be connected to emotional sobriety. So this is the thing I want to say. And the other thing is to learn to write about it and to finally go and teach it to somebody. If you take on one thing today, and whatever it is, it could be something small, whatever, it could be big. Would you make up your mind that you're going to try it and you're going to teach somebody how to do it? You're more likely to succeed than trying to keep it to yourself. So it does take work. This does take work. So I put down 10 powerful ways to regulate emotions. And some of them are very simple. Some of them you probably thought of or you probably do occasionally. But what I want you to do is to do them more often. What are they? Well, breathing deeply. Almost a body sensation when we're upset, our breath shortens and we shallow breathe. And again, the body is going to change the way we think if we put more oxygen in the lungs. Amazing, isn't it? Something as simple as that. So when you notice that you're breathing shallow, just start breathing deeply. And you may want to offer a little prayer in that moment, pausing and breathing deeply, and say, now's the time to relax. This is not going to hurt me. Breathing deeply. Take a time out. Simple. Take a time out. Reflect on yourself. Now, here's, I've got to make a distinction here. when we're reflecting on ourselves, we're looking for our well-being, our health, how we can move forward. We're not looking what's the matter with me or why do I keep myself in this direction. When those questions start with a why, what you're doing is digging a hole. And that hole has no bottom, by the way. The more we ask that question, the more stuck we become, the more problems we see in ourselves, and the less likely we are to move forward. Remove yourself from the situation. Be an observer. Don't be in it. Be an observer. Do something physical. Go for a walk. Lift some weights if you're in that kind of thing. Do something physical. Challenge yourself. Talk it out. Don't let it sit there in us. Talk it out. Because when we avoid and we don't speak it out, it stays in us. It's like we don't intentionally do this. It happens automatically. We suppress it. And by suppressing it, we may not feel it in the moment, but it's going to come back and bite you. It's going to come back bigger and louder than what it was. Talk it out. Even if you feel like you're complaining, talk it out with someone who has a keen ear for understanding and will ask questions, open-ended questions to help you move forward. Be flexible in your emotional resilience. In other words, be adaptable. Be willing to look at things in a different way. Just be resilient around it. Don't be judging and harshly and that kind of thing. You see, the oak, it's a great metaphor. An oak tree is the hardest wood, and a willow is soft wood. In the strongest windstorm, an oak would break. But in the strongest windstorms, a willow will bend. We want to bend it. We want resilience. We don't be so rigid in what we're doing. Practice positive self-talk. And believe me, friends, don't bottle it up. Notes, by the way, will be given for, you don't have to, as I say, if you're writing to remember, it's up to you what you do. Of course, I can't tell you what to do. But I just know through my experience, if you just write what you're going to do, an action, you'll be much better off putting something into action. These notes will be made available to you after the meeting. So each of these methods has the potential to help you to better understand and manage your emotional stress. By learning how to take deep breaths and when feeling overwhelmed, or taking time out to reflect on yourself when stressed, you can start to respond differently in the emotional situations. Now you're working with the emotion rather than fighting against it. See, here's something to think about. We're taught, even in the Serenity Prayer, there are things that we can change and there's things we can't change. And much of our frustration, by the way, is trying to change something that I have no ability to change. And this is where restless, irritability, and discontent, I believe, comes from two places. Is trying to change something I can't change, which gives me restlessness, irritability, and discontent. And it all stems from the desire to control. I'm trying to control something that I have no ability to control. And therefore, the result of which, the body's response is restless and irritable and discontent. See, the body is telling me something. Pay attention here, John. You can't do that because you don't have the ability to change it. We're working with the emotions, not controlling them or not in conflict with them, nor are we avoiding them. We're working with them. And by the way, if we don't do this, we're going to be triggered what is called emotional dysregulation. In other words, we're going to be upset. We're going to have outbursts. We're going to feel sorry for ourselves. See, this is all the results of the unwillingness we have to be with what we're feeling. And the reason we don't like being with what we're feeling sometimes is because it might be painful. It might be uncomfortable. It might be even embarrassing. Or maybe it's something that you're ashamed of. And so we kind of tuck it away. thinking that we've dealt with it, but we really haven't done anything with it. And that is putting dynamite in a gas can. It makes life worse, makes it more difficult. Challenge yourself in another powerful way is to regulate emotion is something called approaching. We're embracing our emotions. Now, some of us may say, well, I'm a little smarter than that. I'm going to embrace my joy and happiness and so on, all the positive emotions, if one could call emotions positive or negative. But I'm going to avoid the others. You see, what happens is you're disconnecting yourself from your body. You'll not be able to feel the joy and happiness that you could have in life only because you're trying to separate yourself from some of your emotions. So you're really doing yourself a disfavor. So we want to start approaching it, facing the fears, practicing self-compassion, and learning to share your feelings, feelings that can be daunting. Still, it is possible to work with our responses with the right mindset and determination. And I'm going to give you some thoughts about that. How can we work with, for instance, resentment? How can we work with anger? How can we work with fear? Because you cannot control when those feelings come up, by the way. It's something you can't control. They're going to come up when they come up. And I hear people who are scratching their head as, why am I still feeling fear? I thought I dealt with it. Well, guess what? It's a human condition. You're not going to deal with it as if it's not going to come back. It's going to come back. And this idea that we're praying for or acting as if we can eliminate fear, eliminate anger, is a mistake because we can't control it. It's part of being human. It's a human condition. So it'd be better if we learn how to deal with it and have better outcomes. So we have to have the right mindset and determination. Learning how to talk about your issues constructively and develop an emotional resilience can be highly beneficial in the long run, as well as ensuring that you don't bottle up your emotions. So one of the things we do is we can start using positive metaphors, not negative ones. Here's some of the terms that I've used, and see if you can identify with this. Oh, this is hard. Now, I want you to get what's hard about it. Is there a hardness in what I'm doing? Or is it a metaphor, poorly chosen? You see, we use metaphors to attempt to describe the experience that we're having. So we say something, oh, this is hard. But there is no hardness to it. It's only what's there. When we add the word hard, guess what we're doing? We're compounding. Now, maybe in this situation, not saying it's easy or soft or whatever other metaphor you may want to use. But what we don't want to do is discourage ourselves and set ourselves up for failure by the use of a negative metaphor. You know, people say, well, John, this is hard. This doesn't work. This is too difficult. Oh, tell me about that. I ask them to really look at it. What makes this hard? Then you get underneath the metaphors. You get underneath to see you're just making words and phrases up to attempting to describe an experience. And what we're doing is working against ourselves. Oh, this is like climbing a steep mountain. Not just a mountain, but a steep mountain. You see, we build things in a metaphor that limits our ability to succeed. And all this is done through language, by the way. Oh, I dug myself into a deep hole. I don't know if anybody's used these expressions before, but how about I feel like an explorer discovering new lands. So when something's emotionally facing me, to take on the growth mindset and say, I'm discovering something here about myself. It's like going into a new land and seeing life for the first time. That we're grateful for things that show up in our life because it allows us to look for strengths to practice so our character becomes stronger and better. As you seen earlier in the metaphor for compass, I use all the time, by the way, is I use compass as a metaphor for my emotions. Why? Well, when you think about the compass, what is it? Where does it always point to? It always points to true north. So my emotions no longer is something to be dealt with or something to change or force. It's showing me true north. It's the body's feedback telling me, John, there's something underneath there you need to pay attention to. There's something valuable for you to learn. So that's why I use the metaphor of a compass for my emotions. Remember, just imagine that how, just using that metaphor, that our emotions become less daunting, more friendly, and more approachable. See, just one word. Now, use the word storms as a metaphor for your emotion. How does that feel? What does your body react to that? How does the body react to, oh, I'm overwhelmed with these emotions. I'm upset. Rather than, I'm here discovering, like an explorer, new lands, new opportunities. Now, when I present this to people, sometimes what they say, well, John, aren't you moving away from reality and into some false place, some imagined place that sounds untrue? And I always say the same thing to them. The only reason it feels like an imposter is because we're so used to working in the negative. It has become a habit. So it isn't a fact. It isn't reality. What it is and how it occurs to us. Remember, go back to that reality versus occurring. So maybe our emotions occur to us as something bad or negative or be avoided. But that's not the reality of it. That's what we make it mean. And what I'm suggesting here is we're going to shift our attention and make it mean something else. You see, we have emotions. We have an array of emotions, some more predominant than others. That's a reality. But what we make it mean is our choice. So it isn't moving from reality to some fancy land of Pollyannas. No, it's not even being optimistic. It's about reframing. It's about setting ourselves up with thoughts that's going to motivate us to move rather than having thoughts that's going to keep us stuck. So we talk about storms as a metaphor for emotions. What we begin to see and feel is danger and risk and fear. They naturally crop up. So we're inviting these emotions to become prevalent, by which we're using the metaphor. I use the metaphor of a good neighbor knocking at my door to remind me that I need to look for a strength. So when I face fear, for instance, when fear is in front of me, I think of it as a good neighbor knocking at my door, reminding me I need to do something and look for a strength that I could use to overcome the fear in which I'm facing. So fear to me now is not an enemy. It's not something to be avoided, but it's something to be working with it. And I'm using the metaphor of a good neighbor, which invites me to look at a strength I can use to overcome it. Now you begin to hear the emotional regulation in this, that we set ourselves up unintentionally through patterns, old patterns, that invite emotional dysregulation. That's the outcome. And what we have to do, like on page 23 of the big book, we have to retrain how we think. We have to look at things differently. The captain, where is that captain going to place its attention, his or her attention? This is what we're talking about. Okay. Here's an exercise I want you to do. So now's a good time to write. So after we take a few minutes of this exercise, we'll get to some sharing. So write both a positive and a negative metaphor and notice how your body sensations respond to both of them. So I want you to get connected to your body. This is about being mindful. It's a practice of mindfulness. And I want you to honor the experience in which you're having, not try to dismiss it or whatever. I want you to honor it. So here's the question. My fear is like, use a metaphor. Don't take a lot of time thinking about it. Just as you would speak to somebody about it, just give an example of what fear represents to you. Your fear represents to you. Second question. My overwhelm is like metaphors, both positive and negative. Third and last question is, my worry is like. Now, we're looking for a few brave souls to share their metaphors with us and what their body experiences is as a result of using some metaphors.
Okay, we already have a hand up. Berlinda C. Hi.
Hi, Belinda, alcoholic. Yeah, John, you said what fears means. Okay, what was the first question? What fear means to me in my body?
Yeah, so what my fear is like a storm or some metaphor.
Okay, for me, the fear always shows me like a bad sludge. You know, it's like a sludge. It's not attractive at all. Right. And I think that comes from me being trafficked by my mom from the age of 11 to 14. I'm 67 years old now, but I'm still feeling that sludge.
Yeah.
You know, I'm still, it's not good. It's not good. It's better than it's been, but I just can't shake it.
Yeah. So when you use the word sludge, is that motivating to you to do something about it or less motivating?
I leave it alone because it's sludge. I don't even want to touch it.
Okay. All right. So if you could find a positive metaphor for your fear, would you examine and look at that, Berlinda?
Yeah, I like water, clear water. I always think of like oceans, running streams, like yeah.
Okay, so my fear is like clean, clear water.
Yeah.
Going past the rocks and cleansing itself. That's what my fear is like. Now, is that more likely to put you into action to approach the fear or less likely?
More likely.
Yeah. So which is true?
The truth is that my metaphor is clear water and that it's approachable.
Okay. Good. So this is experience. You're hitting exactly what we're attempting to do here. Yeah. By the use of metaphors, we bring about certain emotions. And if it's negative, you're inviting emotional dysregulation in your life. Okay. If, however, you create a metaphor that really describes an opportunity that exists. So fear to me is like an opportunity to develop my courage, as an example. And every time you put that metaphor in place, you're more likely to approach the fear than to put it down and not look at it.
Okay.
So you do great work, Belinda. Just great work.
Thank you, John.
Oh, you're more than welcome.
Thank you, Belinda. Hi, Monique. You're up next.
Good morning, family. My name is Monique. Wow. My fear is always had me guarded. And what I mean by that is growing up, always being verbal abuse and everything like that. I had to counteract that. So it kept me combative and always anticipating what's going to happen, even though it prepared me for battle, even though the battle wasn't coming, but I was always prepared and guarded, which is a lot of work, a hell of a lot of work to carry and to do that every second of the day.
Okay. So your fear is like being guarded. You've already said it takes a lot of work and effort. Do you find that motivating or being stuck in it?
Before the program, I used to find it motivating because I thought it gave me strength that, that person or whatever the situation may be will not get the best of me. But being in the program has taught me that it is now, it's just boulders that I'm carrying on my back. And I know I get no motivation from it whatsoever.
Okay. So you've created a burden. You've given your reasons and your evidence. But we also want you to know that what you've done is created that what it means to me part of it. And what we want to do is be creative enough to look at it in another way, to reframe it so you're more likely to approach it and learn from it. So do you have a metaphor at all at your fingertips, Monique, that would describe your fear in a more motivating, light, approachable way?
My metaphor for that is, even though I don't know a damn thing about wrestling, but it is like on a wrestling mat and tapping the floor 3 times and just surrendering.
Okay. All right. So you're describing conflict. Can you describe it in another way that doesn't involve conflict? Now, we're talking about ease and comfort here. We want to get to a metaphor that will help you to develop whatever strength or courage that you need that presents itself for you to overcome your fear.
Just surrendering. That's the only thing that I could come up with is just surrendering. Put down the boxing glove and just surrendering,
Okay. So you're surrendering to your fear. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm surrendering to my faith.
Okay,
my faith.
Okay.
More so than anything.
Okay, great. So my fear is like a friend to remind me of my faith.
I got a good metaphor, if I may. One of my favorite word is frog, and what I believe today is frog, forever relying on God, and that's my metaphor.
Beautiful, great work, Monique. Thank you for working with me on that.
Thank you, Monique. Up next is Claudia. Hi.
Yes, hi, my name is Claudia. I'm an alcoholic calling from Germany. Thank you for the exercise. It's wonderful. I love thinking in pictures, and fear is one of my, I'm still kind of a lot of times in fear. So I wrote down that my fear is like a claw that clutches my heart. Like,
yeah.
That's what happens. I get paralyzed. I can't do anything.
Yeah. So that's a great metaphor. It's a great negative metaphor, and your body sensations are right on. That's what I would expect when a cold hand clutches your heart. That's Can you create a positive metaphor when your fear shows up?
Well, I wrote down that my fear could be like a traffic sign to warn me of trouble ahead.
Okay.
But maybe it also could be, but if I'm in fear, I will never think of a warm hand holding my heart. I don't know if I can make that thought get into myself.
Absolutely. You absolutely can. What we're talking about is our ability to construct with our imagination here. We've concluded something about ourselves when we've associated a cold hand clutching your heart. You created that metaphor. What we want to do now is deliberately create another metaphor that will have you move into the fear so you can develop something in yourself that's maybe underutilized.
Okay, well then this could be this hand, those two hands who hold my delicate heart.
Yeah.
And don't let it fall. Something like that.
Exactly. Good for you. That's great work. Another thing I want to point out that the brain chemical is the very same excitement and fear. There's no difference in the brain chemical. And oftentimes we get confused that we're really excited. We interpret it as fear and vice versa. So we want to be suspicious about what we label in ourselves. We may be expressing a fear, but we might be excited about something. So we have to, again, we want to approach this stuff with an open mind, a growth mindset, being creative. Now, if you're in the fear, in other words, the fear has gripped you, this kind of exercise doesn't work. It only works if you're observing the fear. Because the creative juices stop when you're engaged in fear. Okay, can we have this is unbelievable. I got 10 pages to go through. I'm on page 3, halfway through page 3. Okay. All right. Who maybe a couple more people if they could do it quickly?
Okay. Up next is John C.
Hey, everybody. Hey, the metaphor that popped in my head as soon as you gave the exercise was a rudder on a ship. So I think of a rudder on a ship because I was taught years ago that action cures fear. And so I kind of see fear as a rudder that'll kind of help me go in a certain direction. Beautiful. It's going to push me where I don't want to go. It's going to put me to a place where it's going to be hard to come back from, deeper into the storm. If I see it as a rudder, I can see that I can apply action to that, and I can use the fear to turn me in the right direction. So that's the metaphor that popped in my head on that.
Absolutely brilliant. Good for you, John.
Thank you.
Should we do some more, John? Or
I don't like to disappoint anybody because people want to share what they're doing. Let's just do the 2.
The 2, okay. Hi, Joan.
Hi, Sue. Thank you very much. Thank you so much, John, for all of this. It's been wonderful. Very quickly, the metaphor I have for fear is my fear is like thunder, but it can drive me in a positive direction, which was similar to the last John who had shared. And then my overwhelm is like never ending, but I can share it with others. My worry is like pressure on my brain, but I can talk that worry out and let it go.
Good. Excellent. So which is more motivating for you?
Which one of the metaphors? Is it, John?
Yeah.
I suppose the worry one. My worry is like pressure on my brain, but I can talk that worry out and let it go because I suffer with ulcerative colitis. And early on in my recovery, I picked up all this negative stuff in AA. Oh, don't share your feet, don't share anything, keep your mouth shut, don't say anything, don't respond. And I learned at a very early stage to internalize everything. Mm-hmm. So I did that, and physically, my health, I paid a price with my health.
Yeah, I'm sure you did. I'm sure you did. Okay, great.
So it's under, thank you so much for all your help, John. Been very helpful.
Oh, I'm glad. I'm glad.
Hey, Joan. And Donna's our last hand up.
Hi. I guess my fear is like walking on a landmine, about to blow up. But I guess I can look at that like my fear could be like beautiful fireworks, and then just embrace it, even if it explodes into pieces. Like I'm sure it'll come back beautiful.
Okay. Good. Excellent. So now we're using words and I don't know if you noticed the experience yet in the metaphors that you're creating, how your body responds to either one of them. What you'll find is that one will appear more approachable, more light, so you're willing to approach the fear and embrace it. The other will turn you away. It'll keep you stuck. This is an important connection to make here, friends. It's sometimes in language we begin to create our own reality in words in which we do, and we're unaware of it. We're unaware of it. We've just drifted into a particular way of how to think. We're all concerned about what we think, right? But we're not as concerned about how we think. And what we want to do is develop the way in which and how we think. We want to look for the most motivating and approachable ways to deal with what we have to deal with in the storms of our lives. And by training our minds, you'll be amazed how one will deliver you into movement or action, and the other one will keep you stuck. Okay, so secondary strategy, something else. Nothing happens all at once, right? There's only one way. So I want you to consider another strategy. Embracing the difficulty. And it's a 5-step process, sorry. And it has to do with embracing emotions and welcoming it to existence. So let's take an example of fear or anxiety or depression even. What we want to do is be able to embrace it. We want to acknowledge that it's there. We don't want to pretend that it's not there. So we learn to embrace the emotion and be with it. So you may say something like this: I know who you are. I've seen you before, and I welcome you. You probably helped me sometime in the past, but today you're not going to help me. Then step 2 is, I know this is temporary, and I will not engage with it. So we just allow it to come and go without engaging in it. See, what we do, for whatever reasons, and why we ever started this, is that I've been told, by the way, let me back up a bit. I've been told we have between 7,000 and 70,000 thoughts a day. Now, I don't know how they measured it, and I don't know which one is true, but let's just take the lowest number, 7,000 thoughts a day. And why is it do I stop certain thoughts and engage with them out of that 7,000, and I ignore the other 6,990? Why do I stop those thoughts? All I need to do is just allow them to continue. So I hear something negative or think of something negative in my thought. I don't have to engage with that thought. I can just simply let it go. And earlier in the 7 weeks, we did a meditation called Leaves on the Stream, where we actually sat by a beautiful stream and sat on some nice green grass. Trees are on the banks, and the leaves are falling down. And what we were doing was putting our thoughts on a leaf and watch it go down the stream. This is a practice. It is a practice of letting go. And I tell you what, friends, how many times have you heard "let it go"? And how many times have you been told how to do it? This is how to do it. This is the practice to develop our letting go muscle. So use it, use it, use it, use it. So it's temporary. So I'm not going to engage with it. It's going to come and go like clouds in the sky or the leaves on the stream. And I also have to do this. I have to realize that many people feel the same way as I do, that many people have fear. It's not happening to me. It's a human condition. And then I can use the meditation leaves on the stream or just simply let it go in some other fashion. See, these are approaches on how to deal with emotional regulation. We're looking for solutions. We're not being overtaken by or overwhelmed by emotions. We're accepting them and honoring them for what they are, because they are reality. They are reality. So a couple more shares would be great. I've cut a whole bunch out of here, but that's okay. It'll be on the notes for you to take.
Okay, I'm just waiting for some hands up, John. Here we go. Hi, Charlotte.
I'm sorry my camera's off, but it is actually for this reason. This is what stops me, right? Like, when you said that, it's like my fear is like the invisible man. Because I've lost my eyebrows, like I've spoken about. The skin has grown out of my eyebrows and my fingertips and everything. And my face looks a mess. And my chin. And they've said it's reoccurring trauma. So how do I know when I'm scared that it gets this far? And I know that, like, I came back here and I wanted to be a daughter again, but to someone that I'd learned forgiveness over. So I knew that would be a challenge, but I didn't know. I didn't know it would do this. How do I turn it around and find a positive when all I've got to do is look in the mirror?
Well, there's something beautiful about self-acceptance. It releases a lot of the fear. Each of us have things that you need to deal with, and none of our lives are perfect, and all of us have flaws. But when we learn to accept ourselves for who we are and who we're going to be in this world as we are, we begin to learn to say everything that's here with me now is okay. It's not maybe what you wanted, but self-acceptance is a way to move forward. That's what you want. In other words, you don't want to have a reduced quality of life because what you see is something that you don't want to see. You still need to live your life. And it's easy for me to say that, I get it, and I know it, but it's still a way out. You can have a good quality of life with the conditions of which you've gotten. Practice self-acceptance through language. I accept myself for who I am and what I'm not.
Thank you. I do that. And John, may I just say, actually, it's like leaps and bounds getting better since I've been coming here. And and that's the truth. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome, Charlotte. Best wishes to you.
Thank you, Charlotte. Hi, Anne. You're next.
Hi. Good morning or good afternoon, everybody. I just had kind of an aha moment about the recovery process. I guess, I know that self-examination is, an important part of our recovery. And the question I've been asking myself is why? Why am I feeling this? Why? But, you've brought up the fact that I should be asking myself, how? How do I get myself out of this feeling? How do I? Instead of, I could, examine why I'm feeling something to kingdom come, but it doesn't really help me, progress. So thank you for that. That's it.
You're welcome. And if I just make another clarification, it's not about getting out of something.
Right.
I want you to have the growth mindset to be with something and learn from the experience. And I know you may have meant that, but I caught that in language. there's an avoidance concern that I had, which maybe you didn't mean. We want to honor our experience. That's a great place to start. I'm going to honor it. Why? Because it's real. Because I'm actually feeling what I'm feeling. And this is how you process the feelings without this dysregulation. So great work. Thank you, Anna.
Thank you, Anne. Hi, Andrea.
Hi, thank you. Thank you, John. My picture metaphor of fear was a Ferris wheel. And I am afraid. I'm afraid going up. I'm afraid of getting stopped at the top. I'm afraid of going down. So I have fear everywhere. And the opposite was putting my fears in a small box with a lid. And then as I get help from others, as I pray, and I can take one at a time out, but I'm not, they just don't all come out at once. Okay. So I'm back, as you were saying, John, I'm the captain of my ship. I can look at these. Anything in there probably needs to be looked at, but I can do it when I am in a strong state of mind and not the victim.
Right. Beautiful. Beautiful, Andrea. Good stuff. Friends, I know we admitted we're powerless over alcohol and that we're taught to surrender and abandon. And I believe in those strategies full-heartedly. But I also believe that, too, that God has given us the power. He's giving us the power to move our lives, to fulfill a purpose, full of values, full of principles, full of our strengths. And I really think, for myself, I don't know, you have your own opinion about this on your own, but I really think this is the elongated alcoholism problem. And that is what's wrong with me. It diminishes us. And if, believe me, if you spend 15 minutes to me one-on-one, if you did that, I'm going to tell you, you're going to walk away knowing more strengths than you had than what you realized. I'm not saying that because I've been trained. I was interested in the quality of people that I meet in AA, that they don't see their own goodness. They don't see their purpose. They don't see their strengths that they have. They haven't spent much time at it. And this is a global problem, friends. And what we're doing, we're talking ourselves out of action. We're the ones that are doing it. We're creating this. And we don't need to create it. We can develop and train the mind and be emotionally sober and allow us to continue to grow and put the wind in our sails to move our sailboat to our destination. And that is to flourish, by the way. It's not to avoid alcohol. So you have maybe a different view of it as well. I believe in the human spirit is meant to flourish. It's not meant to be stuck. There isn't anything in the universe that is still. Everything is moving. Everything. Plants, insects, animals, everything, trees, weather, everything moves. And did you know that the universe is still growing as we speak? Right now, it's still growing. The universe is still growing. So we are part of that universe. We are still growing unless we deny ourselves the ability to grow. If we just allow ourselves with the inklings and the urging and the nudging of our spirit to move ahead and deal with everything we need to deal with, we will find emotional sobriety and freedom to flourish. So friends, if you just come for the first time today, I welcome you. If you stuck with me for 7 weeks, I hope you got a lot some out of it. And just let you know that I'm with you in spirit. I may not know your name. I may not know anything about you. But you certainly have my interest and best wishes. So God bless each of you.
John, before we unmute and thank the speaker, can you just take us out with your reading, your choice of your own prayer or favorite reading?
Yeah. Friends, thank you, Sue. This is what I know, that we were just involved in a sacred conversation, and that our higher power presented us with some ideas and thoughts. And the higher power probably helped us to write down an action that we're going to take. So we just want to acknowledge and be grateful for the existence of a God in us, in between us, and with each other. We praise that ability to be growth-minded. We thank him for all the gifts that he's given us, and that the strength he provides us is something that can be utilized so that we can become a fully functioning human being. And all we can say is we thank our God for that. Amen.
Amen. Okay, thank you, John.